I hope everyone's feeling well this morning. Our next Breakfast Club item we'll be going through today is the what, why, and how of Cisco Flex licensing. So what I'll do is I'll introduce the day and the agenda, and then I'll try and set the scene so that everyone's clear about what we're going to try and achieve from the session. So if we could move to the agenda. Move to the introductions, the people. So my name's Dave Hutton, I'm Sales Director of Block. I'm going to be your host today. I'm joined in the webinar by two other people. We've got Kevin Richardson, who is one of our collaboration solutions consultants, and also Shaun Pell, who heads up our collaboration practice. In terms of the agenda, what we're going to talk this morning, I'll briefly set the scene now, take around 5 minutes. I'm then going to hand over to Kevin, who's going to take everyone through two elements, one being the Flex licensing overview, and then also the Flex licensing migration, so you understand what's happening and how to get there. And then we're just going to have a little bit of an insight into the future of collaboration services. And then, time allowing, we'll have 15 minutes at the end for questions. We may not take up all of your time. We have timed this session. Typically, we've been under, but it depends how many questions you have at the end as to whether we'll finish any earlier. So, if I just set the scene, like all of you will know, the marketplace is changing. And what we're seeing from all the different vendors is that they are moving away from their traditional perpetual licensing, and they're moving towards subscription licensing. You know, you'll have seen that in pretty much every single thing that you buy, driven by cloud, driven by software as a service providers, SaaS providers. So I guess Cisco, like everyone else, is doing exactly the same thing. There is a fundamental change that we're going to brief you on today in the way in which things are licensed. We're going to have online some commercial customers and also some customers from the NHS, one of our key markets. This comment I'm going to relay to our NHS customers, which is that ultimately we're conscious there is a challenge that you face when you start to see that migration of subscription licensing, which is ultimately that it requires revenue budget rather than capital budget, which is all, as far as we've seen, usually under more pressure. So we know it's going to create a challenge. We're the messenger. We didn't decide to do this, but ultimately our objective today is to make sure that you're clear on what's going to happen and you're clear on that impact. So, genuinely, this is something that we're briefing about now because from our public sector customers, our NHS customers, we're in a period of time where we're seeing COVID rebates, where we're in silly season for budget, where budget gets thrown at you. One of the reasons for the timing of this webinar is that if you know this is coming down the line and you can't avoid it, then if you do have available budget now, you might act on it. This may be a good thing to spend that on. I'm not doing this as a sales pitch, please understand. It's more about the fact that making you aware. If you're not in that position and maybe your perpetual license finishes a little bit into the future, the key part is to give you the information now to allow you to budget for that change, because I guess if you're forewarned, you're forearmed to make those changes. So fundamentally, this change is happening. We'll give you the timeline and the date, so you'll know exactly what's going to happen by the end of this webinar. And if there is any session that you want to do following this to look at your specific case and what it means to you personally, then my team can engage with the right people within the business to quantify what the impact is going to be for you. So I'm going to hand over to the guys who understand the detail of this. They're going to put the real useful content together today. Then I'll come in at the end, and I'll respond to any questions that you put into the Q&A section of the WebEx. So if I can introduce Kevin to take you through the overview of the new Flex licensing from Cisco. Thank you, Kevin.
Morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. As Dave said, I'm going to take us through the overview of flex licensing, what it is, the fundamentals of the buying models, and then we'll talk about migrations. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is this is a change. Yeah, this is probably a change that we could do without at the moment. We've had a tough 12 months. So some of the challenges that we have now are that flex license, perpetual licensing is complex. Yeah, we've had device license units and user-based licensing. We've had migrations between device-based licensing and user-based licensing, and that's complicated. Yeah, upgrades from version 7 to say version 9 or 10, when we moved from device to user-based, we ended up with an excess of licenses. Yeah, we've come across occasions where we've tried to raise TAC cases, support cases, and some of the licenses don't have underpinning support. So they don't have the Swiss software support services associated with those licenses. And that becomes a difficult conversation between the customer and the vendor and ourselves, difficult to sort out. And also, when we're doing upgrades, the unpredictability. So we get to an upgrade, we understand exactly what the licenses are, we start the process of procuring those licenses, and on occasion we get to the point where there are certain licenses that don't have underpinning support, and they don't have the maintenance to allow the upgrade to happen. So at that point, you then have to go back to procurement, back to finance, and ask for more budget, yeah, to get the licenses from where they are now to the upgrade license. And that's just budget that wasn't there to begin with, and it's a very difficult conversation to have. So, we know what the challenges are. Let's talk about what Flex is. So Flex is Cisco's subscription model for collaboration licensing. It's it provides all of the collaboration suites of applications within one single subscription. There are a number of different subscription models available. So you've got the Flex for calling, Flex for meetings, and Flex for contact center. The buying model that you will all be fully familiar with is the one-time purchase of a license and then the associated maintenance and support, the Swiss support for that license. So an annual subscription for maintenance and support. That's now changed. Flex license includes the software, the license, and the support and maintenance into one single subscription. And what it also provides is flexible terms, so you can buy it over 12 months, 3 years, up to 5 years, and gives you different payment options. So you can do monthly subscriptions, annual, or prepay. So this isn't new. Cisco have had collaboration subscription licenses already. We're on version 3. So the big change with Flex 3 is the fact that we are now end of sale on perpetual licenses. That date has passed. The 23rd of January was the last day you could purchase perpetual licenses and the associated Swiss with those licenses. So the next big date that we need to keep in mind is new renewal of Swiss and attached services will be end of service on the 23rd of January 2022. So Flex is here. The migration needs to happen, and we are here to help you navigate that migration. We'll focus today's session on Flex calling. So Flex calling comes in 2 simple buying models. You've got the enterprise agreement and a named user. The enterprise agreement covers all of the knowledge workers within your organisation. So an enterprise agreement would take you from your current perpetual all the way through a complete flip to Flex. Yeah, so everything goes to Flex licensing in one go. So the benefits of doing an enterprise agreement are you get 20% growth allowance within that term. So as adoption increases or new departments come online for the collaboration services, you don't have to go and get more budget to purchase more licenses. That growth, 20%, is there within that license. You also get additional value. You get 50% additional common area licenses and 20% access analog devices within that subscription. So there's real value in the enterprise agreement. Something else to call out is the fact that Cisco also have an allowance for shift workers. So within the NHS, there are quite a number of shift workers, so nurses, clinical staff. So Cisco recognise that these workers can share devices, telephony devices, so they accommodate within the Flex agreement, enterprise agreement for that. The second buying model is the entry level, which is the named user. And this is a per user subscription. So this is the model that you would choose if you're migrating departments, teams, or a group of individuals. The named user buying model is very similar to what we're all used to now on the perpetual licensing model. Just before we move on, knowledge worker within the Cisco licensing world is defined as any employee or contractor that utilises a computing device. So if we take the named user buying model first, so on the right-hand side of that screen, you can see the value tiers. So the value tiers map direct from the perpetual licenses into the named user. So it's a simple mapping between the two. So you've got, now we're used to QL and UCL enhanced for people who need multiple devices and voicemail. That maps directly into your professional named user subscription. Enhanced, UCL enhanced maps to enhanced, and the basic and essential licenses, your basic telephones and analog devices, map into one single tier, which is access. So what we're seeing quite a lot over the years is there's a large number of enhanced licenses out there within our customer base. So there's a direct match, UCL enhanced to enhanced named user. But with the change in working practices, there's a lot more need for the professional level. So people are working from home, people have multiple devices, people are working remote. So there's a nice migration path between enhanced to professional, so you're catered for there. Some of the benefits of the named user, it's a simple, easy subscription model. It keeps initial costs low because you're only purchasing licenses for those that need the licenses. So it's a nice entry level into Flex subscription. And you can easily extend and expand those services as adoption grows. As adoption grows, you can expand within named user, but you can also transition from a named user subscription to the Flex calling enterprise agreement. And that's a nice, easy migration path. This slide really just gives highlights the phones and devices that are supported within each value tier of the named user. So down there at the access level, this will cover any faxes that are left in the NHS, your analog devices, which will cover red phones, and the real basic handset, 7811s and 7821s. Anything above that, so the legacy 7900 handsets, the 8800 series and the higher level 78s, and the desk devices are covered within the enterprise, the enhanced and professional value tier. So once you have potentially used the named user and you've migrated to enterprise agreement, or you've gone straight to an enterprise agreement, The benefits, I think we called out earlier on, it's a single tier. Yeah, it's simple, single. You've got an enterprise agreement that covers every one of your knowledge workers and workers within your organisation. It's flexible. You get the 20% growth across the term of your contract, and the value that we discussed before, 50% common area, 20% access. You get expressway RMS licenses thrown in, and you also get video device registration per user. So there's real value in an enterprise agreement. Just to give you a couple of an example, on a 1,000 knowledge worker environment, you would get a burst flexibility growth of 200 users. Within that, you would get 500 common area phones. So common area phones would be your wireless phones, nurse stations, and some meeting rooms, so that's covered within that agreement. And you would also get 200 access layer phones. So these would be analog devices, as we talked before, faxes and your red phones. So the value within that enterprise agreement really covers you for everything you need within that organisation. Just one thing, the knowledge workers, to work out the number of knowledge workers and get to that point where you understand exactly who you're licensing your estate for, we can help you with that process, okay? We can work with yourselves and Cisco business unit to work out exactly what you need, exactly what your shift allowance will and shared user will be, and what that gives you for the value added. So how many common area phones you need, how many additional you potentially need to buy, or if you're completely covered by that enterprise agreement. So at this stage, I think Dave covered it earlier on. If you are thinking we want to move to an enterprise agreement, engage with us. Yeah, we can help you through that process. We talked earlier on around the challenges with perpetual licenses. So to bring it full circle, we'll talk about what value Flex provides. Yeah, so Flex is simple, simplicity. Yeah, it's easier model than perpetual. You have a single subscription. Within that single subscription, you're automatically underpinned with software support. New purchases are co-termed with your subscription, so you never end up out of step with your support. And they've consolidated the value tiers, as we've been through. There's only 3 value tiers within the named user and 1 enterprise agreement. It's flexible and agile. So you get a choice of payment methods. You can pay monthly, annually, or prepay the complete term, so on a capital budget. You can mix and match between cloud and on-prem and hybrid. So if you are thinking of transitioning to the cloud, this is cloud considered, yeah? So you don't have to lump all of your users into the cloud. You can maybe transition certain departments into the cloud, yeah? Your Flex license covers you for that transition. And value in investment, it's a predictable revenue model, yeah? You get the 20% growth over the term of your contract, so there's real value in that, and it's a user-based OpEx model, which is where the industry is moving to. So Flex really does have value for yourselves. So we've covered what Flex is, the challenges with perpetual licenses, the value that those Flex licenses gives you. So how do we go from perpetual to Flex subscription? The two real main migration points you need to consider. The first one, if you can secure the funding and you decide that you want to make that jump between perpetual licensing model and annual software support services, Swiss, you can do the full jump mid-term on your Swiss contracts to Flex. Okay, so that'll be a complete migration of your licenses to the new subscription-based model. You will get rebate on your Swiss within that, and we can work with Cisco and yourselves to fully realise what that rebate will be and the value of migrating from complete perpetual current state to future state subscription. The other method, you could refresh your licensing at the point of renewal. So we see quite a lot of our clients, customers that have multiple renewal dates. So they purchase lumps of licenses and those haven't been co-termed. You know, some have been co-termed, some haven't. So what you could do as a potential is migrate those licenses at the point of renewal. So what are the key stages you need to consider when you're migrating, either full Swiss midterm or at the renewal point? First stage is work with ourselves to assess the underpinning Swiss and licenses that your collaboration service is using now. Okay, so what have we got? The second stage is really work with the senior management teams and the business, the organisation. Where are we going with collaboration? Yeah, what does the future collaboration services look like? From that collaboration roadmap, look at what the future licensing requirements are. Yeah, what do we need to license now? What do we need to license in the future? And then what subscription-based model fits into that future state? Is it an enterprise agreement? Is it a named user? Is it a named user that will potentially migrate to a flex enterprise agreement? And we can help you with every stage of that process. So if you engage either myself, if you've got my contacts, or your account team through Dave's team, speak to us, yeah? We are here, we want to help you. This is a change. We know all about the migration path, so we are here to help. The last thing to call out on the migration is, from now, any new licenses you purchase will be flex. So be prepared to speak to myself or our sales support teams. If you're purchasing handsets, the license associated with that handset will be a flex license. So it'll be a named user at the moment until you make that decision on the migration path. So just to kind of round everything up, the key considerations for the flex migration: plan early. Yeah? Speak to us, speak to senior teams within the organisation, make people aware that there is a change. Okay, if you're planning early, engage with me, engage with the account teams, and we can get that migration path started ASAP. Yeah. Make sure that the engagement, you're aligning that migration with the organisation strategy. So if you're thinking cloud, think about the licenses you'll need to cover that cloud. Yeah, is it an enterprise agreement? Is it a named user? Think about what extra services you'll be deploying. Again, is it a access named user? Is it a professional named user? Don't make any assumptions. Yeah. Don't think that all of our licenses are covered Swiss. Don't think that the like for like cost between the two will be exactly the same, because there's a potential that some of your licenses are underpinned with Swiss. So again, work through that process, plan, get that migration done, do the assessments, and we'll help you with that. Engage finance, engage procurement, let them know the changes is coming, let them know that new purchases will be flex, and at some point in the not so distant future, you'll be migrating the whole of your collaboration licenses to that flex subscription-based model. And if you need us to speak to procurement, the account team speak to procurement about how that affects purchase in the future, again, please engage with us and we can work that through with procurement and finance. And I'd like to hand over now to Shaun to talk about the future of collaboration services.
Cool. Thank you, Kev. So yeah, I guess obviously we spoke at length about the licensing model, what it is, how you migrate. And as part of that, obviously Kev's called out the fact of aligning it to the business strategy. And also what I wanted just to talk about was, as we're considering this licensing model, let's not just consider it as a like for like. Obviously, like Kev says, let's fully understand it, make sure we understand the difference between perpetual and subscription. But actually, what can that enable us to continue to discuss about with what collaboration means to you as a business, and how it can support you with changes in demand and changes in what the organisation wants to achieve. So we just want to move to the next slide, Kev. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, what we've seen, and certainly over the last year, is obviously the way people communicate and the way people work together has changed, and it's changed significantly. And I guess it's been a change that's been coming for a number of years, and people do have technology in place to support these services, and other people run, I guess, on end of life technology and haven't acknowledged the fact of needing to provide remote services within that collaboration environment to underpin the way people work in the community and at home. Well, I guess what we've seen certainly throughout 2020 and in a reaction to obviously COVID and the response for that is a number of different technology services have been purchased to support users, to support the organisation in working in I guess flexible working environments. So whether that be at home, remote, different times of the day, still allowing people to work together. But actually, I think now is a good time to reflect, and certainly obviously we're talking about different licensing models and changes within collaboration. It's a good time to actually look at what collaboration services you require, what can be consolidated into that single licensing model, and what that overall architecture is going to look like in the future. So I guess a number of challenges that we see is around end-of-life technology. So people obviously, whether that's a fairly legacy Cisco call manager environment or whether it's a legacy analog environment, there's been significant changes as we've gone through the different versions. There's obviously people have moved to IP telephony and all the features that's provided. But with running end-of-life technology, if you are on outdated versions, so 11.5 is now in the end-of-life process, but if you are running them end-of-life services, it does struggle to obviously meet the availability and security requirements of the organisation, but also it then slows down the feature rollout and the way that users can be supported. So I guess what does happen in them situations is obviously you have to buy separate technology. So you have to buy technology in isolation, whether it be certain applications to support people, or staff and users will actually go and find their own ways of working and their own services. And you end up with an element of shadow IT within the organisation. And certainly where collaboration is concerned, where you've got compliance and the need to manage them services and make sure they're always on, that causes challenges within the environment. And it certainly causes challenges to the IT team. I guess if we move on to isolated technology, obviously that kind of covers it in some ways, but fundamentally there's been a shift to Microsoft Teams. And obviously Microsoft Teams has been a huge part of the way people work, partly because of the M365 agreement within the NHS and the adoption of the Office 365 services, which comes with Microsoft Teams to support video meetings and messaging and document collaboration. But I guess within any organisation, obviously there's been technology that's been adopted to support the way that people need to work remotely and new ways of collaboration services. But actually, how does that then tie back in to your main collaboration platform? So I'm sure we've all had experiences of end users either saying that they can't, like, I guess, critical things such as dialing emergency numbers, dialing crash numbers within the NHS, like, them things aren't possible if that application isn't integrated into the main voice system within that organisation. So without either PSTN integration to Microsoft Teams or PSTN integration and that overlay and integration to the existing call manager environment. And actually tying them applications together, so bringing the partnership between Microsoft and Cisco together, can provide a lot of benefits within the organisation, can provide users with that seamless experience. So I guess ultimately making sure that technology isn't deployed in isolation and making sure that users have all the services that they require to their fingertips. And then I guess really as you do that, we know that if you run end-of-life technology, if you run isolated services, then it becomes very static in location. Because I guess people have historically worked from a central location to work together, or I guess where patients have always come to a central location to receive care. That's fundamentally changed now. So how do you then start to enable people to be able to consume these services remotely, work from any device, work from any location, work from any time? I guess tying that back into that licensing model, what does that mean? Let's move on to the next slide, Kev. So Flex in many ways can support a lot of these, I guess, future-proofing the collaboration services. So being able to provide a single licensing model, agnostic of the deployment, that means where you do have existing on-premises services, it can be licensed through that Flex license model. You can then start to migrate or deploy within UCM Cloud. So Block and Cisco have been working together quite heavily over the last 6 months to be able to offer UCM Cloud services and make that relevant to our customer set, certainly within healthcare, where there's specific collaboration requirements, specific integration points, and the requirement to provide a fully resilient, always-on service. So where we talk about red phones and critical infrastructure, being able to leverage that from a cloud-based environment, that you then get all the benefits of an agile, flexible, scalable deployment. But what does that mean? So, I guess whether you deploy on premises or whether you migrate into the cloud and want to move to a cloud-based collaboration service, we want to make sure that's integrated to Microsoft M365. So where we do see that pervasive adoption of Microsoft Teams, that everything can be joined together and be used through the Microsoft Teams services. So rather than people having to deal with multiple applications, multiple services that provide similar functionality, for instance, having a Cisco client that provides messaging, calling, and having a Microsoft client that also does the same things, actually making it easy for the users, making it seamless and transparent that they have an application that they can go to within Microsoft Teams, but they can leverage a Cisco telephony and contact center services from within there. And that's whether you've got that on-premises deployment or the resilient cloud deployment. But as you start to move through them models, obviously, like I say, you can have that single, the flex-free licensing model certainly supports that. Certainly supports either a mixed environment or either one of them in isolation. And you can start to then deploy the services that you require through that flex-free licensing model. So this is a very, very high level architecture of, I guess, what the potential of future collaboration services would look like. So being able to use flex-free licenses across the estate, being able to provide services within a cloud-based collaboration model, still being able to leverage all the services that you have from an on-premise call manager, but having that availability and scalability of a Cisco UCM Cloud, having a small footprint of hardware on premises to provide that resilience that's required, and providing the, I guess, PSTN access within that local environment. So should you have power, local connectivity issues within that cloud environment, you are assured that you've got a resilient architecture. Not only that, but obviously you can see demonstrated on top of that, actually there's integrations with Microsoft Teams. So making it so that you can utilize the services through integration to whether that be cross connect or direct routing into Teams, and being able to have a single platform so that people, when users are using that collaboration service to work together, work remotely, work on site, they've got that single experience. And it just makes it easy and transparent for the people, so they're not having to think about the collaboration services. They're not having to think about what application to use for what function, and they're not having to think about actually if they need to make an external telephony call and they're sat with just an isolated Microsoft Teams platform at home, that they're able to do that, and they're able to do that successfully without having to jump onto the mobile phone or other services that they've adopted themselves. So bringing it all into one architecture. So what does that mean? So I guess when we talk to customers about collaboration, these are the key things that themes that come up as we go through that, and the key benefits that we talk about. So being able to provide integrated services. So where we're looking at customers that obviously are used to that call manager model, so used to using Cisco's standard-based collaboration services. That makes it very easy for people to be able to work, with integration to other trusts, integration to other providers, and bring, I guess, if you do want to consolidate and bring everyone onto one infrastructure or integrate to other infrastructures, it makes it very easy because everything's standards based and you can work between the different environments. So it very much provides that integrated services. In terms of leverage investment, adopting a cloud-first strategy, but being able to use all of them services within that environment. So if you, I guess, key things when we're talking about any change of collaboration environment is actually, what does it mean to the users? What does it mean to their applications? What does it mean to that physical environment of phones and headsets? And quite a powerful thing is we're looking at potentially transitioning into the cloud, that actually you can stick within a Cisco environment. If you've got the existing handsets, you can transition them through. Nothing needs to change from that point of view. We can provide services through M365, the integration of Teams. So where you do have an investment on both Cisco and Microsoft, you can leverage both of them investments. And I guess key things in terms of video rooms and Cisco, I guess where we've deployed Cisco MPT rooms within healthcare, that actually them video endpoints, you can use them to join Microsoft meetings. So where you do have a significant investment in room-based systems and providing all that audio-visual integration, multiple screen shares, multiple inputs and outputs, you can still do that, and you can still do that in a very feature-rich video endpoint, still keeping that user experience the same, but they've been able to join Microsoft Teams meetings. And that's all done, I guess, we kind of discussed previously on other webinars about cloud video interop and the different integration points. So being able to leverage that existing investment in Cisco, new investment in Microsoft services, and also allowing you to choose the right collaboration services to your needs and not be forced into an environment that you don't want to be in because there's certain adoption of technology. You can choose a best of breed solution through that Cisco and Microsoft partnership. Flexible and community working. So where we talk about people being able to use soft phone services, where we talk about being able to use integrations into Microsoft Teams, it makes it very easy for people then to work wherever, whenever, on any device, being able to join being able to use voice services, have that fully integrated into the existing organization's telephony, being able to do video calls, join video meetings from any device, and that seamless experience about whether you're working at home, working in the community, or working in a central location, all makes it very easy for people to use. I guess what that ultimately then leads on to is providing people the right tools to do the job as really a direct correlation to staff satisfaction. So we know that if people are struggling to use collaboration services, then it means that they're struggling to work together. And collaboration by its very definition is about working together to produce an outcome. And being able to produce that outcome and work together, make success out of your role and grow within your role, have the right services to do that. And it may not be something that people think about on a day-to-day basis. If it all works, it's very seamless and transparent. But when it doesn't work, people become frustrated, and it makes it very difficult for people to do their job. So there's a direct correlation from people being able to work together, being able to produce successful outcomes and be successful in their job, to their satisfaction within their role. And we see I haven't got the figures here, but we see from case studies that have been done, that then has a direct impact to staff retention. So if people are able to be successful in their role, people are able to work together and able to receive communication around organisation changes and things that are happening with the organisation, they're very much engaged within their job, and that then makes them successful and makes them want to stay within that role and want to progress. So I mean, I think we're probably at the point where just throw it out there for any questions, but really, I guess in terms of the future of them collaboration services, hopefully you can see that we talk about the flex licensing, we talk about what that can mean, we talk about actually how you migrate to that, but opening that wider conversation around what your organisation wants to achieve from collaboration services, and making sure that actually, as you are moving to that new licensing model, that it really is aligned to very much what you want to do. So if there's any questions on that, obviously, please feel free to ask them now, or we can work on, I guess, a one-to-one basis and go through what your requirements are.
Thank you, Shaun and Kevin. So that's the content that we wanted to present this morning. So hopefully now you've got what we said we'd get, which is a clear understanding of what's happening, when it's happening, and what you need to do going forward. I have had 3 questions so far. So if you look in the right hand side of the screen, you'll have a little box where you can enter any questions that you may have. I'll start with these 3. If there's anything else anyone else would like to ask, please feel free to type it in now. So the first question that I've had is, can you move from named user to enterprise agreement easily?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So by its definition, it's flexible. Yeah, so you can move between tiers within named user. Yeah, you can uplift the licenses, and when you get to the point, like the tipping point between named user and enterprise agreement, you can make that change to your subscription-based model. Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Second one, quite a simple one, which is the minimum and maximum terms for the agreement.
So the minimum is 12 months, and the maximum at the moment is 60 months, 5 years.
Okay. And is there a benefit for going between one or the other? You know,
I guess yeah. So I mean, the thing that we can work with customers on is actually what we know of working with Cisco is that if you go for a 36-month plus deal, then that's where you can leverage the best discounts. So we can get additional discounts when you're looking at that 3-year deal. I guess what does that actually mean to you as customers is, obviously, one, you get the better pricing, but as Kev talked about before, that there's different ways that you can pay for this. So you can pay for that 3-year term up front, or you can pay for it annually, or indeed monthly. But I guess the majority of customers that we work with would be looking at potentially an annual payment model. But you can still pay for it annually, but leverage the benefits of signing up to a 36-month deal and the discounts that you can get with that.
So just to be specific on that, Shaun, if someone signs up to the pay up front, does that drive a better discount, or is it just the term that drives the?
It's just the term. So it's the term that makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next question I've got is how we work out knowledge workers.
Okay, so we would work with yourselves and the Cisco business unit. Yeah, so the first kind of figures we would look at is people who utilize a computing device or a telephone. Yeah, so that's how we'd work out the number of knowledge workers. There are some figures around, like I mentioned on the webinar, around shift workers. So there's some discounts around those shift workers within that knowledge worker count. It really is a kind of two-way thing. So we sit down, there's a few questions we need to run through, some templates from Cisco. So yeah, it's a bit of a consulting piece between ourselves, Cisco, and the trust to get that final figure for the knowledge worker count and all the associated value add and discounts from there.
I think it's quite an interesting question. I mean, I think this is where we really engage with yourselves as customers, understand what your requirements are. Like we sort of said, is make sure that the licensing model is right for what you're looking to do. And then as you start looking at enterprise agreements and the knowledge work accounts, then at that point, we'll already have had a good level of understanding of your organisation. But we've got, like Kev said, certain templates and things that we then work yourselves to fill out to provide a real world licensing count of how many knowledge workers you have. So it's all things that we can work through with our customers with.
Okay. So at the moment, I have no further questions. So I'll give it another opportunity if anyone has anything else that they haven't got answered so far. Other than that, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today. We run these sessions on a regular basis. This is quite a specific one. It's a little bit different to the ones we usually run, because it's obviously very focused on if you like, the commercial and licensing aspects. But we will circulate to you other events that we're running, which are focused on the application of technology, typically. So we run these as an ongoing education program. Hopefully, you've got all your questions that you want to get answered. You're clear about the path. You know what's coming down the line. As I said at the start, the objective was to make sure you were forewarned and forearmed about these changes, and can account for it in your planning as you move forward. I'd like to thank Kevin and Shaun for the content. Appreciate what you've taken everyone through, guys, and I'd like to thank everyone for spending the valuable time with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.